Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Suelen Balado, neuroeducator, specialist in bilingual child development, and active early years teacher. Today we are going to explore how neuroscience can guide us when planning for early years children between the ages of 3 to 6. Many times planning in schools is curriculum driven. The teacher has a list of objectives, topics, and activities to follow. But children don't always learn in a straight line. Their brains develop in bursts, in cycles, and in deeply emotional contexts. And that's why we talk about development-driven planning. Adapting what we do to how the child's brain is actually ready to learn. Here, we'll explore 6 key areas of neuroscience that have a direct impact on early years education. They are memory systems, limbic system, typical neurodevelopment between 3 to 6, schemas alignment, language development, and graphism, which is the foundation for writing. By the end, you'll have a clear picture of what's happening in the child's brain and some strategies you can apply directly in your classrooms. Let's begin with memory systems. At this age, children are strengthening 3 main types of memory. Working memory is the brain's notepad. A 4-year-old can usually hold 1 to 2 pieces of information at a time. That's why giving multiple step instructions can be overwhelming. Planning implication? Keep instructions short and give children visual or physical cues to support recall. That means giving long explanations before starting the activity will probably not work as well as it would in older classrooms. You are actually wasting the short attention span these ages have on the wrong task. Explain activities when you are already on the table with them and while you do it with them. 1 or 2 steps at a time. Episodic memory is the memory of experience. When a child remembers a field trip or the story of their birthday, that's episodic memory. It becomes stronger when emotions are involved. So, if you want children to remember vocabulary or routines, tie them to meaningful, emotional, real-life experiences. In early years, that could refer to learning during play or during a task-based activity in which children are using their body, sensory system, and interaction with other people. Then we have procedural memory. It's about skills and habits. Tying shoelaces, drawing circles, repeating songs. It develops through repetition and practice. These explains why children love routines and why repetition in learning activities is not boring, but essential. In early years, that means breaking tasks into steps and highlighting them during learning. That means having routines with anchor moments that are always the same, as benchmarks that will help children navigate beginning, middle, and end of the day. Steps of activities outlined in visual aids and having key skills provided by diverse sensory activities that repeat, reinforce, and expand concepts through different tasks. As Dr. Karen Purvis would say, it takes 400 repetitions to form a new neural connection, but only 10 to 20 repetitions if you do it through play. In short, children remember what they feel, repeat, and practice. Now let's talk about the limbic system, the emotional center of the brain. First, there is the amygdala, which processes emotions such as fear, joy, and anger, and plays a role in emotional learning. The hippocampus is responsible for forming new memories and connecting experiences with emotions. The amygdala and hippocampus are like gatekeepers. They are responsible for the fight or flight reactions. They decide if information is safe and welcome and kept, being stored as long-term memory, or if it feels is stressful, unsafe, and disconnected, what causes the amygdala to block the experience away, keeping the brain from that learning. And more, it teaches the brain what to avoid because it feels so bad. So that can be the beginning of a learning difficulty. The amygdala and hippocampus, they preserve experiences related to good emotions and block the ones that don't trigger a positive emotional connection. And that goes for lifelong learning. While the amygdala identifies stressful situations, the hypothalamus regulates the responses to it. Also, hormonal activities and basic drives like hunger and sleep. Between 3 and 6 years old, emotional regulation is still very immature. Children rely heavily on adults to co-regulate, to help them calm down, manage big feelings, and return to a stage where they can focus again. Then we have the cingulate gyrus, which involves attention, emotional regulation, and decision-making. Together, these two regulate the responses to the environment inputs. Altogether, the limbic system decides which experiences will be stored in the long term and which will absolutely not. So, as teachers, our role is not just academic, it's also emotional. Creating safe rituals, greeting children warmly, naming emotions, and providing comfort during transitions are not extras. They are brain-based necessities. To sum up, the limbic system defines early childhood learning. A child who feels safe and supported, low amygdala-driven stress, is more open to exploring and learning. High stress or fear can impair memory formation in the hippocampus and reduce attention. Children remember experiences tied to positive feelings or curiosity. And the limbic system drives social bonding and attachment. Positive interactions with teachers and peers strengthen emotional connections, which facilitates cooperation, empathy, and collaborative learning. The limbic system also interacts with the dopaminergic reward pathways, influencing motivation. As we can see, activities that are playful, exploratory, and rewarding increase engagement and long-term learning. That is why play is such an effective pedagogical strategy for early years. Play releases dopamine and endorphins. These feel-good chemicals are crucial for memory, critical thinking, and making learning more joyful and memorable. Play encourages curiosity and exploration, which are natural driving forces of learning, and allow for the make of connections that lead to mastery. Playful learning increases engagement and makes children more likely to remember what they are taught and build upon previous skills, making learning more efficient. That raises a question. So, should children just be free playing all day long? No. It means that your planning should offer activities that are engaging and look like a game from the child's perspective. But you must have your goals and purpose very clear. You should have your main goal broken into steps, and the activities you choose should be these steps. Ask yourself, which skills am I supporting in this activity and how it brings children closer to our main goal for this group. What's happening in the brain between ages 3 and 6? First, synaptic pruning and myelination. The brain is cutting away unused connections and strengthening those that are frequently used. That is why repetition is not enough. They must be meaningful and put into different contexts in order to flexibilize thinking. The flexible reinforcement makes learning more efficient, but it also means children need lots of practice with core skills. Second, executive functions are emerging. These include inhibition, flexible thinking, and sustained attention. But remember, they are not yet mature. That's why early years get distracted easily, struggle with waiting their turn, and shift focus quickly. So we should always be mindful of their attention span. Third, motor development is accelerating. Fine motor skills like holding a crayon or cutting with scissors, they improve, but they still require lots of support. Gross motor play, running, climbing, balancing is equally important because it builds neural foundation for focus and self-regulation. For teachers, the implication is expect unevenness. A child might speak in complex sentences, but still struggle to control impulses. Or they might draw with detail, but have difficulty sitting still. They might even display amazing academic skills, but struggle with social-emotional. So planning must allow flexibility for these developmental differences and provide all kinds of exploration in order to help them balance all these uneven skills. In our toolkit, you will find a developmental table based on the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, two world-renowned institutions in the health and development areas. Let's move to schemas. Schema alignment in early childhood education is the practice of observing the patterns children naturally repeat in play and aligning your teaching goals to those patterns so that learning is development-driven and brain-compatible. In early childhood, children show schemas through repeated behavior that reflect how their brains are making sense of the world. Some of them are trajectory schema, when a child loves throwing, dropping, or running in straight lines. Rotation schema, when a child is fascinated with wheels, spinning objects, or turning around. Transporting schema, a child repeatedly carries objects from one place to another. And enveloping schema, a child wraps, covers, or hides objects. Schemas are not just play. They are visible signs of how neural pathways are being strengthened through repetition and exploration. For example, one who fills and empties containers repeatedly is in the enveloping and transporting schema. Another who builds towers and then knocks them down is working with trajectory. When a teacher intentionally connects learning opportunities and curriculum goals to the schemas children are already showing, she is supporting schema alignment and consequently child development. Instead of fighting against a child's repetitive play, you should align your teaching with it. From a neuroscience perspective, schemas are the child's way of wiring their brain. Repetition strengthens neural pathways, and our job is to observe these patterns and integrate them into learning. If a child is obsessed with rotation, you can plan math activities with wheels and clocks or art with spirals. If a child loves transporting, give them opportunities to move materials while connecting it to sorting, counting, storytelling. Schemas are windows in the brain. Planning with them makes learning natural and powerful. Now let's talk language. Language between 3 and 6 explodes. By the age of 3, most children have around 1,000 words. By 6, they may know 10 to 20,000. And that looks very different and uneven in bilingual children. However, the pathway is the same. They move from words to simple sentences to more complex structures and begin to tell stories with a beginning, middle, and end. For bilingual children, this is a sensitive period for phonology. They can absorb multiple sound systems naturally, but they need consistent exposure and scaffolding. High frequency, high quality input. Okay, so what counts as a word? So according to studies in speech and language therapy, what counts as words are real words like dog, mama, ball, approximations, which are close enough consistent, and meaningful. Counts if the child consistently uses the same approximation that means the same thing each time, like wawa for water, banana for banana. Onomatopoeia or sound effects count if they use them meaningfully. And the proportion of use should shrink as vocabulary grows and be almost gone by the age of 3. Like vroom vroom for cars or woof for a dog. Signs or gesture count if a child consistently uses the same gesture or sign to communicate one same concept. They might use it in singing systems or consistent home signs. Its use should decrease as the spoken words emerge and be significantly gone between 2 and 3 years old in children with intact hearing. At last, words in any language. Bilingual children distribute vocabulary across both languages, but the total vocabulary is compared to norms. For example, if a child says coche in Spanish and car in English, it counts as 2 different words, not just one concept. Because they are 2 different labels, counts as broadened vocabulary. For developmental milestones, like for example 50 words by 18 months, we combine spoken words, sound symbols, conceptual signs into the total expressive vocabulary. What matters most is symbolic representation and intentional communication, not the modality like spoken versus signed. So, which are the words that do not count? Imitations that are not used spontaneously, like repeating after an adult once but not using it independently, that doesn't count as a word. Babbling without referential meaning, like ba 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 ba, without consistent reference to what am I referring to, they don't count. Sing songs or rote speech that is not used functionally, like reciting the alphabet or any song without meaning it individually, they don't count. In a classroom, because the teacher is the main source of input in that additional language, that might be a tricky task to provide such quality and frequency. For that, I have created an interaction protocol based on speech and language therapy to structure the real-life interactions during the daily routine in order to turn every second into intentional language scaffolding. In the resource area, you will find the article about my interaction protocol and how you can use it in your routines. Remember, language is not just stored in one place. It lives in semantic memory, which is the system of meaning, but is activated and reinforced through episodic memory, experiences and emotions. That's why songs, storytelling, and frequent one-to-one, face-to-face, real and meaningful interactions and relationships built around it are so important. Finally, let's talk about graphism. This is the development of drawing and pre-writing skills children need to build before being able to read and write. Children move through stages: scribbling, which is pure motor exploration; controlled shapes, circle, crosses, repeated forms. That's normally when they start to cross the middle line. Symbolic representation, drawings that represent people, houses, trees. And letter-like forms, early attempts at writing. These stages develop unevenly, and the ages are orientative, as graphism development is deeply connected to the psychomotor capacity and development of each child that, as we said before, can be very developed in one front and very behind in another one. That is because neurologically, this requires coordination between fine motor skills, visual spatial processing, and memory. Repetition of shapes like circles and crosses show the brain rehearsing important neural patterns that are supported by sensory exploration. Another key for graphism development is to draw on different planes, not only on the table, but on vertical, horizontal, slanted, on the floor, on easels, in the air, and etc. That engages large proximal muscles like shoulders, arms, and back, which must be strong before fine motor skills can stabilize. Also, it supports proximal to distal development. That means before holding a pencil steadily, children need stability in the shoulders and arm. Drawing in different planes provides these opportunities for development. Before worksheets, graphism should emerge in sensory play like drawing in sand, painting, tracing shapes in the air, mapping stories on paper. These experiences connect motor, cognitive, and emotional systems. To wrap up, memory systems remind us that children learn best through purposeful repetition, emotion, and meaningful experiences. The limbic systems show us that emotions open or shut the door to learning. Typical development between 3 and 6 years old is uneven, and we need to plan flexibly. That means every activity must leave room for differentiation. Schemas are children's brain-building blueprints, and observing them gives us insights into their learning. Language development is rapid, and storytelling, songs, and conversations make it thrive. Graphism lays the foundation for writing, and it grows naturally through play and sensory exploration. The big idea here is this: planning in early years should not just follow a curriculum. It should follow the brain. When we align our teaching with neuroscience, we respect how children truly grow, and we make learning joyful and effective. Thank you for joining me in this session, and before you go, I invite you to reflect. What's one thing you could change in your planning today to make it more development-driven? If you want more information and tools about how to make it happen in your class, check out my course, Development-Driven Planning in the PYP Early Years Framework, here at the platform, and get your complete